Right, sports fans. It is Tuesday evening, and welcome to another episode of the GT Sports Keep It 100, where it's real talk, talk professional college sports. And tonight, I'm going to talk about the NBA. Game one of the finals is tomorrow. The San Antonio Spurs take on the New York Knicks in San Antonio. Game one and two will be in San Antonio. And I'm gonna give you my prediction on who I think is gonna win the series. Now, I am a San Antonio Spurs fan, so I'm rooting for the Spurs. So there's a very good chance that I'm gonna pick them to win the series. But in this podcast, I don't always if my gut tells me that the other team's gonna win, then I'm gonna hope for the best for my team. But I'm gonna tell you on this podcast who I think is going to win, what my gut is telling me. So I'm going to give you my predictions. I said I was going to come on before the game starts, and so that's what I'm doing here. But before I go into the prediction, I want to talk a little bit about that game seven. I haven't been on since the Spurs won the series versus OKC, and look, I thought it was a great game. I really thought the game seven was the advantage OKC because I knew they were down two players, but the noise crowd at home, I knew it was going to be rowdy. The Spurs were young, and so how were they going to handle the runs? I felt like Wembanyama needed to have a big game. I'm not sure he needed to have 40, but he needed to have an impact offensively, defensively is where they needed him. And then I felt like if they took a lead, right, you knew OKC was going to run. How were they going to handle that lead? Were they going to start turning the ball over? I felt like they needed to make big shots down the stretch. There was a lot of things that they needed to do to win that game. And boy, I got to tell you, I was very, very impressed with the way the Spurs played. They came out very focused. So a lot of credit to Mitch Johnson and his assistants because the Spurs were ready to play in game seven, right? They were focused, not just one or two players, all of them were focused. They were ready to play. They started off the game hot. They needed to get off to a good start, and they did not play from behind. So that really helped. And then I think as the game went on, they of course OKC made some runs like we knew they were, but the Spurs made shot after shot when they needed to. I mean, Dylan Harper was big off of those, getting some rebounds, and made some shots off those rebounds, or gave San Antonio another possession. And boy, Champagne was on. They just made shot after shot. So they shot with confidence. They played with confidence, and man, that was huge. The winning the series against the defending champs was big, but that game seven, winning that game seven in OKC is where I thought it was really huge. And so that's going to carry over. How is that going to carry over to the finals? I'll get to that here in a bit. But I was really impressed with the starters in that game seven. I mean, they all hit double digits. Champagne had 20 points, Wembanyama 22, De'Aaron Fox 15, Vassell 11, Castle 16 off the bench. Keldon Johnson, man, he came up huge. Not hadn't been really playing great started off, but he made some big shots down the stretch for the Spurs and was a big part of them keeping that lead and winning game seven. And then Dylan Harper, what can you say about Harper with 12 points? He's been key off the bench for the Spurs, man. He is a handful, and we're going to need him to play that way in the finals. Keldon Johnson also is going to have to show up here in the finals for the Spurs to be to claim that championship, right? To be the champions. De'Aaron Fox was huge. I said in my podcast prior to Game Seven that De'Aaron Fox needed to show up. I said like he's going to be key. He cannot just have 2 points, 4 points, and be ineffective, right? He doesn't lead. He doesn't have to be the leader in points in this Game Seven, but he needed to show up, and he did. He shot 6 of 12 from the field. 3 of 7 from 3 point range for 15 points. So that was huge for him. So it was great to see De'Aaron Fox. But in all of the Spurs contributed, right? And I was really happy to see them because I think in that game seven, it's the first time they've all, as a unit, most of them have played a game seven, right? And so they don't know what to expect, especially when you're going into your opponent's place. And I thought they handled it well. And again, you give a lot of credit to Mitch Johnson and his assistant coaches because, man, they really had this team focused. I can't really tell you how important it is or give credit to these coaches for putting this young team, having the focus. The preparation was good. And man, they were ready to go. And SGA, I think, ran out of gas. He looked very tired afterwards. I understand that two of their best players were not in game seven, but I think they did play game one when Wembanyama had 40 points and San Antonio beat them. So I think Mitchell and Williams did play game one. So they did have their full strength in game one when San Antonio went into their place and beat them. So this thing that people say, well, they beat them when they didn't have their stars. Well, that's true. If they'd have played the whole series, would it have turned out differently? Maybe, maybe not. But they played in game one against San Antonio in their place. And took double overtime, but San Antonio beat them when they were fully staffed. So I mean, obviously missing them definitely hurts you, but does that mean that they'd have played, they'd have beat San Antonio? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I know that I mean, not having them definitely hurt the Thunder, but not necessarily does that mean that they'd have played, they'd have beat San Antonio because San Antonio beat them when they had them in game one and at their place and still came out with the win. So, I don't put too much thought into that. The Spurs were focused in game seven. They played better. They put themselves in a position to win. And every time the Thunder came in with a run, San Antonio answered. And they were huge, right? In the way they answered with a big shot, confidence in shooting and hitting the shot, getting a rebound when they needed it, man. Like it's huge. And so that was a great win. The Spurs won 111, 103. They were the Western Conference champions, and now they go into game one tomorrow, right, against New York, a different team. I've heard the last couple of days of how the Knicks have owned Wembanyama and have won. They won the NBA Cup earlier this year or last year in December, I think it was, and how they beat them at Madison Square Garden and how the Spurs barely beat them 134 132 or something like that. And it is true, and I think you do play with confidence. I think when New York sees that we beat them when Wembanyama, I think like when San Antonio beat OKC, right, when you go into that game one, it's different in the playoffs, but you have confidence. When you beat a team, you play with you beaten them before, whether it was the NBA Cup or the regular season, you beaten them. You know you can beat this team if you play great basketball. So I think that the Knicks are coming in confident, obviously, in the series, and they should be because they've had San Antonio's number. But when you look at the regular season and you look at the last 2 months of this, the San Antonio Spurs are not the same team that they were in the NBA Cup. This was a young team still at that time, to me, trying to figure out who they were. As the season progressed, as they played in the playoffs, as they played Portland, as they played Minnesota, as they played OKC, those three series, really, these guys grew up. They're playing with a lot of confidence. And so, look, whatever they did, yes, they beat them. And so I think there is some confidence for the Knicks, but this is a different San Antonio Spurs team from the last 2 months of the regular season, I would say, into the playoffs, right? This team is playing with a lot of confidence. Like when you take down the champs, right? You got to come out and play. You feel like you can beat anybody. And so I think the San Antonio Spurs, especially having home field, if there's a home court advantage, if there is a game seven, it's going to be played in San Antonio. That's going to be huge for this young team because I do think playing in Madison Square Garden with that crowd is going to be intimidating. Now, I'm curious to see how San Antonio is going to play in New York because they're going to be rowdy, a lot rowdier, I think, than they were in OKC. You're playing in the Mecca, you're playing in Madison Square Garden. That's huge. It can do something to your mental state, right? Because of the way that they make it out to be. If you're watching the media, if you're hearing all of the talk, so it could be a little intimidating for a young group of guys that have shown they can play and win on the road, but still it can be a little intimidating. But if it does come down to a game seven, man, you're going to be playing it in your home court for a young team. That is exactly where you want to be. So I like the chances for the Spurs. I think they've been through some tough battles here. Portland, I knew they were going to be Portland, but Portland, gave a little bit of a fight there. But then having to play against Minnesota and Anthony Edwards, man, that dude, he's a dude. He's a stud, right? Trying to have to stop him through the series was difficult. I think they grew up there. And then SGA, the MVP, and you played him tough, you played him physical. And then here come the Knicks with Jalen Brunson. I like the way that defensively San Antonio has looked to play, right? I think if they let him be physical with Jalen Brunson, look, Jalen Brunson's going to get to his spots. He's just that good, right? But they're going to tire him out. I think if Castle plays physical, which just is the only way he knows how to play, but if they allow that physicality, man, I think Castle can play him up one on one, which then allows the other defenders to stay on their shoes, because I think New York shoots the outside shot better than OKC. That's just my opinion. So you got to take that away, and then I've often said when Wembanyama gives you 20 something points, man, that's a plus. But defensively is where I think he makes the biggest difference, right? That's where he helps San Antonio win these games. What you get from him offensively is awesome. If he gives you 30 points, that's a plus. But I think San Antonio can win games when he has that 22, 23-point game, because I think what De'Aaron Fox and what Dylan Harper can do, these guys, they can get inside, they can really hurt you. Champagne and Vassell, their outside shots. It's going to be very interesting, but I like San Antonio. I'm taking my Spurs to win because of what I saw in the playoffs, especially what I saw in the way that they played against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, for New York, they're tough, man. Brunson's a tough dude. He's physical. He's small. I think Castle's bigger than him. They might even put Harper on him. So he's going to be against some bigger defenders, but man, he's crafty. I mean, this guy gets to his spots and he's going to make those shots. So just like SGA, you just got to make it hard for him. He's going to hit his shots. Just continue to play him up. And I think Castle, I'm interested to see how Castle's going to play him. I mean, if you can play, SGA, the MVP of the league, the way you did, then you should be able to take on Brunson, is what I'm thinking, right? But New York, they talk about, how they look. I'll say this in the East: you play who you play, right? Like they didn't get to choose. They played Atlanta. Atlanta was up 2-1, gave them a game. I thought they were going to lose that series, but to credit, they came back and they beat an Atlanta team that's going to be tough next year, I think. And then you took on the 76ers. You swept them. I think, no, Joel Embiid wasn't 100%, but very impressive. Tyrese Maxey, Edgecombe, those guys to sweep them. I didn't think they were going to sweep. I thought New York was going to win the series. But I thought that Philadelphia was going to give them a better fight. And I thought Philadelphia had a chance, but New York, just swept them. And then Cleveland, I didn't think Cleveland was going to beat New York. I thought the one team that might have had a shot was Philadelphia. And then we saw what they did to them. And then Cleveland, because Cleveland doesn't really play defense, right? Like, I know Harden's a bigger guy, but Harden doesn't play defense. He sure doesn't play defense like Stephon Castle did. So if you look at that series, there was a lot of open shots that New York had. They were hitting them. They can hit the outside shot, but the defense really wasn't there when they played Cleveland. So it's not surprising to me that New York swept them, but I think San Antonio is going to be a lot different than what they saw against Cleveland. If you're comparing that defense of what you saw in the Eastern Conference with Cleveland versus San Antonio, it's totally different. These guys are younger, they're more physical, and Castle's going to play Jalen Brunson physical. Now, how much of that are the refs going to allow the bumps? Are they going to call it a little bump foul, or are they going to let him kind of play? But if they let him play, I think Castle's gonna be. I don't like again. I don't think he's gonna shut down Jalen Brunson because Brunson's just too good. But it's gonna make it difficult for him, and I think that's what you got to do. Listen, if you can hold Brunson to 20 some points, and you don't have to double team him, I think that's an advantage for San Antonio, right? Because you got to stay on the other shooters. Offensively, I think New York's going to be able to. They're going to be able to defend San Antonio a little tougher. I think San Antonio's bench is going to have to come to play. I don't think they're going to be able just to win with their starters. Right? You're going to have to get production from Keldon Johnson, Dylan Harper, Cornette when he comes in there is going to have to. His minutes are going to be very important when Benyama is resting. Let's see if Bryant plays. We're going to need something from him. I mean, you're going to need the bench for San Antonio is going to have to show up and be effective. De'Aaron Fox, I like what he does. He seems like he's healthy now going into the finals. Harper seems to be healthy when he's going into the finals. And so I think it's going to be a good matchup. A lot of people think it's going to be a sweep. I don't think it's going to be a sweep because even if San Antonio takes the first two, I think it's I think I'll say this: if San Antonio wins game 1 and 2 in San Antonio, I think New York can easily win game 3 and 4 in New York, right? Like so, if San Antonio goes 2-0, I think it's a little bit more difficult in New York. I think New York will play better in New York, so I think it's important for San Antonio to win the first two games, game 1 and game 2, going into game 3 and 4, because then you take some of that pressure off of them. If they get one in New York, that's great. I'm not saying that San Antonio can't win on the road after taking 2 in OKC. Of course, they can go into New York, but if they go 2-0 to start the series and then they go to game 3 and 4, what I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me if New York can then tie the series and win game 3 and 4. That's why I say if San Antonio holds the home court, right, then game 7 is on their home court. Now, I've been on the record as saying, game 7, anything can happen. So this time it would be advantage San Antonio if they come to a game 7. But again, you don't want to go to a game 7 because anything can happen, right? Injuries, fouls, we can be off, they can be on. So just because you're at home for a game 7, it's nice and you want to be at home, but that doesn't necessarily mean you win because you just never know what can happen in a game 7. So hopefully that won't happen. But if it does, I'm glad it's going to be in San Antonio. But this is going to be a series, man. I mean, how effective is Wembanyama going to be? I think he's different than when the Knicks last played him. I think he's playing with more confidence. I love to see him more inside, but that's not his game, I guess. And so we're gonna have to rebound, and I don't know because that's going to be key, right? They're bigger, I think. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we do on the rebounds, because I think that's going to play a part. We can't just be one and done. But it's just going to be interesting. But I do like the Spurs because of where they've been. I think the competition, right, has prepared them for the finals. They have had a tough road to the finals. It has not been easy. I think the road was easier for New York, right? As Philadelphia was not 100%. Joel Embiid was not 100%, and that factored in to the sweep, right? Cleveland, I'm not big on Harden and playing defense. So I thought that they were going to win that series. So I don't know if New York has been tested in the playoffs outside of Atlanta the way that San Antonio has. In other words, San Antonio had the rougher road to get, I think, to the finals than New York, right? So I think how that helps them is they have seen great shooters, SGA, MVP, Anthony Edwards, right? They have had to play these guys, defend these guys to win those series to get to this point. So what Jalen Brunson would bring after having to guard SGA and Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, you've seen it. You've been able to not shut them down, but you've been able to do your job to hold them to a certain amount of points that gives your team the chance to win. So if they can do that, Jalen Brunson isn't going to present anything different than what SGA did or Anthony Edwards, right? So we know that San Antonio can defend those guys. We know that they can defend Jalen Brunson. And I think if you keep Brunson in the low 20s, and that really gives you a chance to win because Brunson, to me, has to have the big game for the Knicks to win. So that's what gives me confidence. I think if they allow Castle to play, and then you put a Dylan Harper on him, I mean, I think you're going to see different defenders on Jalen Brunson. They're going to be bigger guards on them. So it's going to be very interesting to see if San Antonio's guards that guard Brunson can, I don't think they can shut him down completely, but slow him down to maybe like mid-20s, low 20s. And if you can do that, I think we got a good chance to win. The other side is Brunson doesn't play defense either, right? And so that's going to be key, right? To be able, because Brunson's not a good defender. So it's going to be an interesting series, man. I'm really looking forward to it, but I think San Antonio is going to win. I like our matchups. I think offensively, we can use matchups where I think we can beat them. The rebound does concern me somewhat because when Benyama doesn't play inside, I think they are going to be physical with them. I think you've got bigger bodies. You know, he owned Chet Holmgren in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns is going to be intimidated. I don't think Mitchell Robinson is going to be intimidated. It's interesting to see if Robinson is going to play because he's questionable for Game 1. So if they don't have him, that's going to be a loss. But I think they're going to be banged. They're more physical, is what I think New York has. So how is San Antonio going to react to that physicality? Those rebounds, the rebounds are going to be key. And the turnovers, right? San Antonio can't turn the ball over against the Knicks. You can't have 21, 22 turnovers, not going to win. And you definitely can't lose the rebounding battle either. So it's going to be very interesting. That's where my two keys. I'm a little critical. Rebounding, especially offensive rebounding, for us, blocking out, making sure that they don't get second chance points on the other side, and then the turnovers. If we can win those battles or compete in those battles, then I like our chances. But the key for me is I think Castle's going to have the role of defending Jalen Brunson, and I think if Castle can slow Brunson down without having to double team him, just like up one-on-one and not get into foul trouble, then I think that's a plus for our defense because then the other guys can stay on the shooters and contest those shots and make it difficult for them because the Knicks are gonna shoot the three. I think more than what we saw from OKC. So we'll see how that plays out. But if Castle can play Brunson up, man up, and slow him down and hold him, then the shooters can contest those threes. And then I think if that happens, it's harder for New York. And I think that's an advantage for San Antonio. So we'll see. Game 1 is tomorrow at I think 7:00. So, man, I'm excited. Listen, I didn't think the Spurs were going to be here. They have shown me a lot through these playoffs, through the way that they won. Like I said, I was hoping that I picked them to win the series against OKC, but going into Game 7, I got to be honest, man, I thought, God, they're just gonna have to go through a lot, and I don't know if they are ready to go through a Game 7 with all the noise. They're gonna come running on them. I just kind of felt in the back of my mind, they're gonna turn the ball over, but they didn't. Man, they were really razor focused, and again, that's a credit to the coaches. Man, they really had these guys focused. They're ready to go, and the players were ready to go. So, when you talk about do they want to win now? Man, they want it bad. Like they want it bad. And I hope that we win this game because I think that would really say a lot about this young team, right? They're here for the long term. Look, we've arrived already, regardless of what happens in the finals. But if they win this championship, man, they're going to win a lot more championships. I mean, they made a big statement. If they defeat the Knicks and they become NBA champs, man, that is huge. That has put that they finished the season right. They were the best team, and they should be the favorites to come back. I know OKC is going to have they'll be healthy but if San Antonio wins the championship, they should be the team to beat next year. I mean, and not just because they won a championship, but because they're young and they can make moves. They can still better this roster, right? Because you got to look at a lot of these guys are playing on rookie contracts, right? Like De'Aaron Fox is making the most money, and then you got like Harrison Barnes, I think, is making the second most money, which he doesn't play a lot, right? Because Harper and Castle and Wembanyama, they're all on rookie contracts. They're basically playing for pennies on the dollar. When you sit when this team is in the championship, right? So, if we're the last team standing, man, they put everybody on notice. This team will be back next year and the year after that. And the scary part is they can still bring in additional players or whatever they got to do to make this team better. And that's the scary part. So for San Antonio, they're going to be around for a very, very long time. I've already ordered my gear, shirts, caps, jerseys. I'm a Spurs fan, I always have been, and I love the Tim Duncan era, the David Robinson, but Tim Duncan, the Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. Man, it was fun to see those guys. Tim won 5 uh, championship. He got all 5 right. Ginobili and Parker weren't there for all 5. Robinson, Sean Elliott, Avery Johnson weren't there for all 5. But the one guy that was there for all 5 was Tim Duncan. And I thought that team, wow, there's never been a team like those Spurs. But here comes Wembanyama. Here comes Dylan Harper. Here comes Stephon Castle. These guys have a chance to be possibly even better than them, which is a scary thing to say, right? But the one thing that I'll say is when they brought Tim Duncan in, they always surrounded Tim Duncan with great role players, right? Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. They had Robert Ory, they had Steve Kerr, they had veterans like they have De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes. They brought in Tiago Splitter. They all Bruce Bowen, who Kawhi Leonard. I mean, they always brought great players around Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was always competing for a championship because the Spurs did a great job of bringing in players around them that they could always compete for championships, and that is why the Spurs have 5 banners up right now. And that's why Wembanyama, I think when you look at that, because he can sign an extension, I think, after this year, is it gives him confidence that he's always going to be surrounded by talent because that's what the Spurs do. That's what R.C. Buford and Popovich, that's what they do. They're always going to make sure that because Wembanyama is the new Tim Duncan, right? Wembanyama, you build around him. And they're always going to put talent around Wembanyama for the Spurs to compete. This is what this franchise does. This is what this organization does, right? They put talent. So he's always going to have talent. He's always going to be able to compete. Does that mean they're going to win every year? No. But they're always going to upgrade the roster to make sure that there's talent around Wembanyama where he has a chance every year to compete for a championship. That's what happened to Tim Duncan, and he got 5. So if the Spurs can get 5 more in the Wembanyama era, man, that'll be 10. That'll be awesome. So the Spurs, that's what excites me about San Antonio is I think that they're going to win more championships. They could win one this year. They're already in position to win one. But with Wembanyama there, if he plays 15 years, let's say, for the Spurs, how many championships are they going to win? Probably, I would say more than one, obviously. But who knows? Because they're so young. But it's exciting every year to be able to watch them and see how many they can win. But like I said, if he can win 5, that'll give us 10, man. We're definitely trending in the right direction. But for this year, I'm taking my Spurs. I know it's going to be a little tough, I think. But again, I don't think the Knicks, I'll end it with this. I don't think the Knicks, because I don't think playing the Sixers, like I said, with an injured Joel Embiid, the Cavaliers defensively weren't much of a threat. Atlanta played them tough. So they're going to see a hungry Spurs team like they didn't see the last 2 rounds in the East, right? With Philadelphia and Cleveland. These dudes from San Antonio, we talk about how the Knicks want to win. I'm sure they do. But these young dudes over here, they never got the note that they didn't belong, right? They have all the confidence that they can win this. They want to win this. They're hungry to win the championship. And they just went through some series, man, that really people didn't think they were going to be able to do. And they have been proving people wrong every series, right? Well, now you got to face Anthony Edwards, and how are they going to do this? And they did it. Well, now it's SGA and it's the defending champs and the MVP, and they did it. So all this talk about what New York, I think, can bring to them, and like I said, it's a different challenge, but I think it's a challenge that the Spurs are up for, right? They had a tough 7-game series, but look, they've had a couple of days to rest, right? Saturday was a game. They had Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday to rest. And so when I look at that, they're going to be rested up, right? It's going to be a good series. I think it's what people want to see. But I think San Antonio has a great chance if they come out, if the game plan is good, and if they're focused like they were in Game 7 against Oklahoma City, they're going to win this series because the advantage is for them. They have home court advantage. So it's going to be great. Looking forward to it. Going to get my chips and dip and everything I need to get ready so I can sit here because I don't want to miss a minute of this game. But when people tell me, oh, the Spurs are going to sweep them, I hope so, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I just think New York is too good to get swept. But it's going to be a tough series, man. It's going to go back and forth. And like I said, when San Antonio, I think it's real important that they win games 1 and 2, because in games 3 and 4, Madison Square Garden is a little different than playing in Minnesota, playing in OKC, or playing in Portland, right? So I think games 1 and 2 are real important for San Antonio to win. So it starts tomorrow. We got to win game 1, and then we'll go from game 2. But damn good series. But I'm picking my Spurs to win. I'm not going to give you a 6 or 7 because I don't know. I just know that I think we're going to win. I think we're hungry. And I think through the Western Conference playoffs, I think those games, those tough series, have prepared these young men to win the championship this year. So go Spurs, go. Game 1 tomorrow. Afterwards, if I don't come on Wednesday night, because the game's probably going to end kind of late. If I don't come in and do a podcast right after that, definitely the next day on Thursday, I will jump back on and I'll give you my thoughts and recap the games. Until then, enjoy game 1. I'll talk to you guys on Wednesday, late Wednesday night or Thursday. Go Spurs, go.